What if the worst thing that ever happened to you was also the best thing that ever happened? Not just to you, but to thousands of people you'll never meet. Joseph, now the second most powerful man in Egypt, stands before the brothers who sold him into slavery. He has every right to revenge. Instead, he weeps and says something astonishing. You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. This isn't cheap forgiveness or denial. It's a radical claim about how God works in history. The Joseph story is the Bible's most sophisticated exploration of divine providence, God's ongoing guidance of history toward his purposes, right? And it challenges everything we think we know about how God operates, right? To understand Joseph's astonishing claim, we need to see what makes this story different from everything else in Genesis. Unlike Abraham's angelic visitors or Jacob's wrestling match with a divine being, God never directly appears or speaks to Joseph, not once. The story reads like a psychological novel: family jealousy, favoritism, betrayal, sexual temptation, political intrigue. God works entirely behind the scenes, through dreams, through circumstances, through human choices, both good and terrible. This represents a fundamental shift in how divine action operates. Abraham receives direct revelation. Jacob sees heaven's ladder. Joseph gets no supernatural encounters at all. He navigates by wisdom, character, and the trust that God remains present even when invisible. The plot engine is family dysfunction at its worst. Jacob's favoritism creates the crisis. The famous coat of many colors signals to everyone that Joseph is the chosen heir. The brothers' jealousy escalates from resentment to murder plot to human trafficking. And Judah, remember this name? Judah is the one who suggests selling Joseph rather than killing him. Profit over murder, but still monstrous. Joseph descends to Egypt as a slave. His brothers return home with a bloodied coat and a lie that will haunt their father for decades. The family appears permanently shattered. In Egypt, Joseph rises through character and competence, not miracles. He interprets dreams, but credits God for the insight. His skill serves Pharaoh's practical needs, predicting 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine. Joseph becomes governor, managing Egypt's grain reserves. Then the famine strikes, not just Egypt, but Canaan too. The very mechanism of Joseph's suffering becomes the mechanism of his family's survival. His brothers arrive in Egypt seeking food. They bow before the governor, not recognizing their own brother. Joseph recognizes them immediately. And here's where the story gets psychologically fascinating. Joseph doesn't just forgive, he tests. His elaborate deception isn't cruelty, it's diagnostic. He recreates the original crime to answer one question: have the brothers changed? He accuses them of being spies, demands they bring their youngest brother, Benjamin, Rachel's remaining son, the new favorite. Jacob explicitly fears losing Benjamin as he lost Joseph. The parallel is exact. Joseph plants his silver cup in Benjamin's bag, then discovers the theft. Benjamin must stay in Egypt as a slave. The other brothers can go free. This is the test. Will they abandon Benjamin, Rachel's son, their father's beloved, exactly as they abandoned Joseph 20 years earlier? Everything hangs on this moment. Judah steps forward. The same man who said, "Let's sell him for profit," now says, "Take me instead." He offers himself as a slave so Benjamin can go free. He describes their father's grief, takes responsibility for Benjamin's safety, and volunteers to bear the punishment himself. This is the emotional and theological center of the entire narrative. Genuine repentance demonstrated through action, not words, not promises, but sacrifice. Judah has become a different man. The brothers who callously sold Joseph have become men willing to sacrifice themselves for family. Joseph can no longer contain himself. He clears the room of Egyptians, and reveals his identity through tears. I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? The Joseph story fits a larger pattern that runs through Genesis. God consistently chooses younger sons over firstborns, Isaac over Ishmael, Jacob over Esau, Joseph over his 10 older brothers. This violates the explicit law in Deuteronomy about inheritance rights. Primogeniture, the firstborn's right to leadership and double inheritance, was foundational to ancient society. Yet God repeatedly overturns it. The text offers no explanation. Jacob was a liar and a cheat. Joseph was an arrogant, spoiled brat. God's choices aren't based on moral superiority. They remain mysterious, operating outside human systems of merit or inheritance. So, what is the Joseph story actually claiming about how God works? Joseph's statement isn't fatalism. Everything happens for a reason. It's a specific theological claim that holds two truths together. First, human responsibility remains. The brothers meant evil. Their guilt is real. Selling Joseph was wicked, and the text never suggests otherwise. Second, God's purposes encompass and redirect even human sin. Providence doesn't excuse evil, it overcomes it. This isn't a formula for making sense of suffering. Joseph spent 13 years in slavery and prison before vindication. The story doesn't promise quick resolution or easy answers. The Joseph story sets up something larger. This descent to Egypt meant for evil, used for good, plants Israel in foreign soil. A pharaoh will arise who didn't know Joseph. The families saved by Joseph's wisdom will become slaves under Pharaoh's cruelty. The Exodus, Israel's defining story, emerges from this chapter of providence. The pattern repeats. God's promises are certain, but their fulfillment is unpredictable and often painful. Abraham waited decades for Isaac. Jacob fled his homeland for 20 years. Joseph endured slavery and prison before becoming governor. Divine timing rarely matches human expectations. The Joseph story invites a particular kind of reflection. We may be living in the middle of a story whose meaning we cannot yet see. The worst chapters may be essential to an ending we cannot imagine. This isn't optimism or denial. Joseph wept. The brothers carried guilt for decades. Jacob mourned a son he believed dead. Providence doesn't eliminate suffering. It weaves suffering into purposes larger than any individual can perceive, purposes that may take generations to unfold. You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. The same brothers who threw Joseph in a pit became men willing to sacrifice themselves for family. The same favoritism that shattered one generation was transformed into reconciliation for the next. Character change is possible, providence is real. And the God who works through human drama, including human sin, remains committed to purposes that outlast any single lifetime. The story continues, the meaning unfolds, and we, like Joseph's brothers, may not recognize the ending until we're standing in it.